of her in new countries every week, and I get very jealous. But I met Cathy when I was working in the Middle East. She was the associate director of the women's campus where my husband was teaching, and I was over at the men's campus. But you were kind of like in a way, I was doing my doctorate at the time, and, I was doing my doctorate online. It was a distance learning program. And so I got some interaction with my peers and my dissertation chair, but not as much as you get when you're on a campus. And so for me, it was very exciting to meet Cathy because she's just an expert in e-learning and ed tech integration. And I kind of glommed onto you, Cathy, and I made her my mentor in a way as I finished up my doctorate. And I would go to her and have her basically give me ideas, or I would bounce stuff off of her. And she helped lead a huge initiative in the Middle East where they implemented iPads with 17,000 students. Is that correct? Around there. Yeah. So anyway, I'm very happy that Cathy's taken some time out of her extremely busy schedule to come and talk to us. And I'm now going to pass it over to you, Cathy, and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Michelle. It's great to hear you and see you and join your club. It's exciting what you're doing. And I have to say that I have a special place in my heart for the area where you all are located. I lived in Cobleskill for a while. My parents went to the college there. And so happy to be back there, at least virtually, and hope to get there in person at some point. So really glad to be joining you. And what I thought I would do, I won't say a lot actually about the work that I'm doing right now, other than to provide some examples of where things are happening that lead to engaged learning and personalized learning. And I won't say too much about Microsoft unless you ask. A lot of what I'll be discussing is some research. I hope that you're good with that. When I go to conferences, when I do presentations, I like to put research in the title, and I tell people that's like my Harry Potter sorting hat. So that people who show up in the room, when they see research in the title of a session, we know they really want some data and some evidence. So I'm hoping that's okay with you. Some of it's research that I did in the UAE with Michelle, and some of it's research that happened before and after that point. Some of it's research from colleagues. So what I'll do is I'll move forward here. So before I went to the UAE, I did have a faculty position. I was a professor in educational technology and doing research at the University of Florida. So that's where a lot of this work came from, both in higher ed and in K-12. So most of my career, Michelle calls me an expert, but really it's about longevity, I think, more than anything else. Most of my career I spent working with technology in teaching and learning, and a great deal of it studying e-learning, studying one-to-one programs, mobile learning programs, online and blended programs. So if you do have questions or comments, if you want to provide your own examples, that would be fantastic. And I welcome you to join via audio or in the chat window. I'll try to keep an eye on that as well. So what I want to do, I think you saw a link to a sway that I did that described an engaged learning study. So we talk a lot about engagement. We've talked a lot about engagement in education for a long time. We know that it's the first step of learning, right? Students need to be engaged in what they're doing so that their brains are activated and they're ready to do something new, to increase their skills or their knowledge. So engagement matters, but we haven't had a lot of, I suppose, evidence-based definitions of it, or really a lot of evidence about what it means to engage students in teaching and learning. So it was great last year to see the study that I included in the SWAY and actually see what some research-based elements of engaged teaching look like. In the SWAY, because I use this in my work, I associate it with some of the technology that we work with, but the principles are what matter, the principles of engagement. So we'll take a moment and take a look at that. Then I do want to review the research that we did in the UAE, because we had an enormous opportunity to look at what it meant for faculty to take on new roles and to start working in new learning environments using the mobile tools that they had, and to think about blended learning and to think more systematically about using digital tools. And so we collected a lot of evidence through that first year and a half of the mobile learning program at the national level. And I want to share with you some of the results, what we learned and what worked. Then I'll touch on some research on online learning, some of the key factors in engaging students when it's a fully online delivery. And then, I don't know if you saw the handbook of research in online and blended learning that had just come out this year. I did a chapter with my colleagues here about, it was a lit review basically, about what works in mobile learning. So I want to share some highlights from that. Touch on learning communities, because that's such a pivotal part of what we do as faculty and with students. And then start to think forward, what I see happening in terms of trends, where we're headed, and some of the promising potential of some new technology to help us to grow what we know about teaching and learning. So I hope that sounds okay. And again, I want to hear when you'd like for things to slow down or a little bit more detail, or to stop and discuss a little bit. And I'll be happy to share with you the slides, which have links to a lot of the resources that I'm using. So this is the sway, and let me see what it will look like to share my screen as I go out to that web page. So you're seeing what I'm seeing. So let me maximize this. Okay, so that's my construction view of sway. Let's get to the, there we go. So this study came out in one of the premier education research journals. If you're an education research geek, then you might be familiar with this particular journal. It's got a high standard. So if this study showed up in that journal, it's a reputable study. So again, I was excited. Now, it takes place in a high school classroom. I think that certainly there are elements of that work that will apply and will not apply in higher education. I think between higher ed and K-12, there's considerable overlap, but not 100% overlap. But I do think that there are some lessons to be learned, and there's not much that I found regarding research and engagement in higher ed that kind of looked specifically at some of the principles and practices. So if we can, we'll just take a quick look at what those principles are. So we know about relevance. We know that matters to students. They want to attach what they're learning to their lives. And with technology, we've got increasing opportunities to bring relevance to what students are doing, especially when we think about project-based learning or challenge-based learning, and give students that choice and the ability to apply what they're doing in their lives. When I was teaching, designing courses, whether they were online, blended, or face-to-face at the university, I always tried to build the competencies and the specific knowledge that students needed to learn into a project. So a little bit later in the session, I'll look at kind of a learning journey in some of those stages of how we build students' knowledge and how I use those as cycles to build in stages to a project that students could apply their learning in the real world. So the next two principles, care and concern. Certainly students want to know, they want to be treated as people. I think that was some of the pushback from early online courses and some of the adaptive learning systems. Students didn't feel that they had relationships. And I learned this lesson the hard way when I was teaching online. I had always done an introduce yourself forum or introduce yourself session at the beginning of an online class. And then as I worked with students who were in the same program and in the same classes over and over, I thought, okay, well, this time I won't do that. That was a big mistake. So they really want to join in a conversation with each other, get to know each other, feel like they're making a human connection and that they've got colleagues and peers that they're working with. The same is true with online programs. So we at the University of Florida have many, many online programs in education, and always offer a face-to-face session at the beginning. for students to come in on campus or to come in virtually like this so that they can build those relationships if they don't already know each other, and to start to join together in conversation about the subject that they're working with in that class. So tremendously important, and just paying attention and hearing students and hearing what their cares are, what their interests are, and joining them into what they're doing in the class shows students that they are being listened to and heard as people and cared about. And I think, again, the technology gives us the opportunity to do that more often, like we're doing here. Affirmation was another one that was interesting to see in this this study, and it aligns with John Hattie's meta-analysis results. So if you're familiar with John Hattie, he has a book called Visual Learning that he's continued to update over the last several years. And it basically looks at hundreds, nearly 1,000 meta-analyses in education to try and distill what the top factors are that contribute to learning. So he gives effect sizes for each of these factors. And as might be expected, feedback and providing guidance are at the very top of that list. So that's what I read when I see this engagement principle number 4, providing affirmation. And again, the technology lets us do that more frequently at a more personal, individual level, and also gives us opportunities for students to get feedback from each other, as well as in an automated way. You know, for something that they're learning that they can get feedback on and move on independently.
I have a question for you, Cathy. What do you think of peer-to-peer like feedback in a more formal way where they actually kind of help grade each other? I've heard both pros and cons and arguments for and against it. What do you think?
Yeah. I've seen actual systems created for peer grading. I like peer feedback a lot. I always use that, especially in graduate classes, but also in undergraduate classes, because I think it's actually a reflective process. I think that's what the value of peer feedback is. I never do peer grading in the sense of a formalized assessment. I think we have instructors in a class for a reason. I like peers to give each other feedback, but I don't want part of the grade to depend on that. I really want it to be part of a reflective process and a process for students to see alternative perspectives and viewpoints, right? So they're not just hearing about the content or experiencing the content from their perspective or my perspective, but other perspectives. So for me, that's some of the value. Not seeing a change in the screen. Yeah, absolutely right. I think there need to be guidelines. You can't just toss something out there and say, what do you think? So, I ask students to use either the same rubrics that I would be using to evaluate them, or create specific rubrics that they can use so that they're getting really specific feedback, depending on kind of where they are in a developmental process. Initially it might be feedback around an idea or relevance or feasibility. Later on, it might be related to quality. So there'll be different characteristics, I think, that would matter depending on when peers are giving feedback and at what stage in a process, right? So I'm looking at the chat window. Right. So I use peer feedback in most of my graduate and undergraduate classes at the university at stages in a project, right? So I always want students to be able to basically pitch their ideas and pitch their concepts and then pitch how they're doing in that process and in the development of a project to each other and get feedback from each other. As well as to experience different approaches. So the length of the class has been semester classes. Now, in the online classes that we did, Julie's exactly right. So in many of the online classes that we did 8-week sessions. But in the campus-based classes, we did 16-week sessions. And in both of those sessions, there's time for at least a couple of cycles of peer review during the process.
Cathy, were you switching slides, or should it still say 6 keys to engagement to build student success?
Yeah, I had actually gone out to the web page where the sway is, and I'm not sure what I need to do. I'm sorry about that.
That's what we're seeing is that sway page, but it hasn't changed. We're not seeing any slides or anything moving.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, what I'm going to do then, because I'm on the 6th key to engagement, I'm just going to stay on the slide and go from there. The 6th one is self-expression. So basically allowing students to do some kind of creative work and make some choices about what they do. And again, the technology has the opportunity to help students with expressing themselves in the process of doing the work that they're doing. We will move on from there. Great, okay. So to dig a little bit more deeply into engagement, specifically in the kinds of learning environments that we're talking about, I'll highlight briefly some of the findings from the research that we did in the UAE example, because I think it translates really well. You know, when people first hear about anything happening in the Middle East, they think, oh, that's so completely different from my world, there might be some limited transferability. But in fact, the faculty that we worked with were primarily from the US, Canada, the UK, Australia, and teaching in English and teaching an American British sort of curriculum. So I think the culture, the academic culture, is very similar to what we might find in universities in the US. And so what we did in 1 April, the announcement was made by the Minister of Higher Education that laptops and textbooks would be replaced by tablets, and that digital curriculum would join in. And so then by the time that students started the following September, we needed to be ready for that. So with Michelle's help, we started working on some faculty development. We did webinars, we did face-to-face, we had virtual communities, a range of activities. Primarily, it was around creating new learning experiences, entering into teaching and learning from a design perspective. So on my campus, we did some design workshops to help faculty think as designers and to think in teams. And so during this process of opening up the mobile learning program and moving to digital content and moving into blended learning environments, we collected a lot of information. There were some class observations that faculty did with each other, because they were doing a lot of peer curriculum development. And so there was a class observation instrument that they used that was specifically designed for mobile learning in active, engaged learning environments. So this was one that we adapted from one that had been developed by the National Science Foundation in the US. So we have some information about that and how roles in the classroom and activities in the classroom were changing. Did a lot of interviews and focus groups, some surveys around TPAC, technological, pedagogical content knowledge, and then also asked faculty for what they were teaching, like examples of their best approaches, their best teaching approaches at different points in the process, and aligned them with rubrics for authentic learning and for meaningful learning. Yay, okay, so TPAC should be familiar. So we defined engagement as students being active in the classroom. And so we wanted to define that. So on my campus, we looked for definitions and rubrics that faculty could use to kind of see where they were. And so Jonathan has definitions and a progression for meaningful learning. I can share with you a link where that has been defined in terms of technology. And we also we use Newman's rubrics for authentic learning. So meaningful and authentic were what engagement meant to us. And so we wanted to make that really kind of specific and explicit. And so what happened was we looked at the kind of types of engagement. And all of this is actually published in an article that came out a few months ago. The ACM has an online journal called eLearn, which is a nice set of research-based and case-based stories about effective use of technology for learning. And so this study was this kind of synthesis of the research that we did was published in that journal, so it's available, but I'll just highlight it. So After we defined what engagement meant in terms of authentic, meaningful, and active, then we decided how we wanted to look at that. And so what happened was that as faculty began working together, designing a curriculum, thinking differently about what they could do because of the technology and thinking differently about what students could do, they started using the tools. And then in the classrooms, there was much more student talk. There were much more productive sorts of student activities. They were using the time in the classroom for students to work together, to take advantage of being in the room together, to give each other feedback, to practice, and to collaborate. So the emphasis was on that collaboration. Then in terms of pedagogy, there was an emphasis on community. And so within each campus, faculty were encouraged to work together. And there were many campuses set up spaces for that to happen. It sounds like that's something that you have on your campuses. And virtual communities as well, to bring faculty together just to talk about interests that they have or approaches that they're using. And then we did national celebrations. So periodically we brought faculty together to share some of their top most effective ideas and kind of quick share sessions. And we always had 400, 600 people coming together for a day in one place to share those sessions, and it was incredibly energetic. And I've seen that that model adopted in other places in the intervening time. It's worked very well. So it's the sharing and community that launches these kind of changes in practice. And the process also leads to reflection. So anytime that we can kind of sit back and think about how things have gone and do that reflection together, we can start to move forward. We also had to rethink assessment. So there were some kind of specified assessments, but the formative assessments, what students did along the way, was rethought. It wasn't a model or a replica of a summative assessment, but it was intended specifically to be different. And then, so I talked about the community. The community focused on challenge and project and inquiry, and taking advantage of what students were able to do in those different environments. So I'm going to move forward. We're testing our slide advance here. Are you seeing a change? Fabulous, thank you. All right. So it was a great learning experience to see how engagement could be enhanced and grown at a national level as well as on specific campuses. And I want to mention that part of the community, part of that professional learning community was those webinars that Michelle led. And I think the first one or two, there were people who weren't faculty who led them just to kind of get things going and who partnered with faculty, a little bit of coaching. And then pretty soon faculty were able to kind of take over and share what they were doing, which was fantastic. So moving on from the mobile learning environment to the handbook. So from the handbook chapter, we did a lit review, and we wanted to see basically what the literature was saying about effective learning practices across about the last decade of research in mobile learning. And so a few key themes came out of that research. So this is kind of a global lit review. It's a broader perspective. And so, one of the major findings was that students were able to be more active and co-create. So putting students in this creative, productive mode worked really well because they had the tools that they could use to create, and they had choices of tools. So having choices of tools that they can use in creating pieces of a project adds to that relevance, makes them owners, kind of motivates them to continue to develop those skills. So that was important to see, and to see examples of how that worked in a range of content areas. And that gave students flexibility. So not just flexibility in time and place, but the process that they use for their learning. So not only did they have a range of tools to construct evidence of their learning, but tools to actually engage in the process of learning. And I'll be going into a little bit more detail about tools and tool choice. There's great research, actually over the past decade, on student use of tools appropriate for the task that they're engaged in for learning. This has really changed my thinking about the role of technology, and a little bit about the faculty role in helping students to think about themselves as learners, think about the learning process, and how they make conscious decisions about the tools that they use. So having access to them anytime, anywhere, helps them to be more deliberate and choose those tools. And the great thing is that the tools that they're using for learning are tools that they'll continue to use beyond our class or our program or their degree into their professional lives or the next stages of their education. But it's not something that comes naturally to all of them, right? So we have this tendency to think that, oh yeah, students have been using technology their whole lives. They know how to deal with it in education. Should not be assumed. So in terms of independence, that was another theme that came out, that because students had access to the technology and their learning environments and each other outside of the class period, that enlarged and expanded the learning time that students had, and gave them more opportunities to reflect. So in the classroom, we kind of want to pack things in to the time that we have, and we don't necessarily build in reflective time with our face-to-face. So it's great if that's not possible or if that's not practical to build that in the online environment, which is something that discussion forums and the peer review, those kinds of practices do really well. All right. So in terms of leadership, apart from the learning, we're increasingly seeing the importance of the role of leaders, whether it's leaders of a program or leaders of an institution, leaders at different levels, kind of having a vision, supporting and modeling new practices or desired practices makes a big difference. So if you're fortunate enough to be in a situation where you've got that leadership, that's a hard thing. The technology is not difficult, but the leadership can be difficult. So if you have information or suggestions about supporting leaders, that's something that we're actually looking for. It's recognized that it matters, but we haven't gotten really good in education about figuring out how to guide leaders and how to build leaders for new learning approaches. So lesson learned, but not too many answers at this point. There's a lot in business. And so we've got a couple of groups looking at whether leading innovation and leading change in business or in organizations that are not education translate to leading innovation and change in education. If you're interested in this, there is an opportunity. And so kind of to wrap up the lit review and the evidence, the research is becoming increasingly important. So as educators and students and leaders have more choices, they seem to be expressing a greater desire for evidence, for examples of where something has worked, for studies, any kind of evidence that shows that what we're proposing, what we're asking, what we're suggesting ought to matter. Now, we know that we're moving in new directions, so there's a balance here between waiting for proof and kind of experimenting. And this is a debate that I hear often in education. I hear people saying, well, we shouldn't be experimenting with students. My position is we're required. We're not serving them well if we're not experimenting to some extent, because we know it's not perfect. We know we're not doing as well as we could. We know there's room for improvement. We have to keep trying. But based on evidence, based on good practice, right? Based on our expertise, we have to make decisions about how to try new things and try to move forward and try to improve outcomes. So there are lots of models that people are working with. As you look across institutions that I'm sure you're seeing competency-based programs and institutions and personalized and collaborative, as well as mobile, online, and blended. So there's greater diversity than ever, I think, in our approaches to education, and growing evidence bases for it. All right. So I'm checking the time. It looks like we're about halfway through the time that we have. And I want to make sure that if there aren't questions or points that people want to bring up, that I'm not moving too quickly. So, yeah, okay. Great. So I mentioned Hattie a moment ago. Hattie's Visible Learning is a source that a lot of educators appreciate because it distills down decades of knowledge of education, research and education into a ranked list. Now, we have to keep a couple of things in mind when we look at his list of top effective education practices. It is over many decades, and our knowledge about teaching and learning has shifted clearly, and our approaches to teaching and learning have shifted. And so it's informative, it's useful, but we do need to look at it with an eye to what will work within the environments that we're looking at. So some of the top ones are student self-assessment, which again is, I think, where peer learning can come in. So for students to put their work in front of other people, I think they have to have thought about it themselves. I think they have to be expressing it and explaining it. Yay, thank you. And so there's self-assessment in the frame of self-reflection. Students can be assessing themselves in a formative way, assessing each other in a formative way, and thus thinking about what they're doing and forming some of that metacognition. So any kind of formative assessment will give students feedback on how they're doing and how they're progressing. And discussion and clarity. So in online learning, we see lots of models of online classes, and we hear over and over again that structure, detail, being very specific matters, which it does. We have to reach that balance between the right information and the right amount of information and being overwhelming or unclear, it's a delicate balance, which takes a little bit of practice and some modeling. So specifically in terms of online learning, there was some synthesis of research that I did not too long ago, and some original research that looked at what students actually did in their online classes and associated what they did with how they did. So if we think about their behavior within a learning management system, their interactions with each other and with the instructor, how much time they spent, how many logins, those kinds of things, as well as what was happening in the classes. The analytics allowed us to take a look at how those factors contributed to actual performance in terms of student grades within the class and student grades in exams beyond the class. So time, as we might expect, was a factor. And so students who spent more time engaged in their learning were the ones who did the best. Motivation is clearly a factor, so students who kind of come motivated, they've got a jump start on that. But anything that we can do to keep them motivated and engaged, bring some variety to the learning experience, kind of have them flow between individual activities, instructor-led activities, collaborative activities. Those will definitely add to their interest in spending more time in the learning experience. And then back to the research on engagement, having a supportive climate. There still can be some kind of healthy debate, right? But students need to feel like they're not taking too many risks, that there will be support for them, that what they do, their instructors and their community of learners will be supportive. We talked about choice, flexibility, and adaptation as well. Those have all come out specifically in the online literature as factors that matter. Although there were some subtle differences that I'll point to briefly. There were students in the study that I did, students in introductory classes, some kind of novice level 1 classes, and then students in more advanced classes. So not necessarily experts, but kind of farther along in their learning. The profile of time to logins flipped when they moved from an intro class to an advanced class. So in the intro classes, if students logged in less frequently and spent more time per login in their sessions, they tended to do better. So thinking that as a novice, they need more time to kind of process and to work with the new knowledge. But at the advanced level, the work was becoming so much more complex that they would reach an overload point. So they needed to log in less time per login, but more frequently. So they needed to kind of space their practice. So it makes sense from a cognitive perspective. And if that's true, then that can help us with our design. So with our design for intro classes, we can think about longer periods with some scaffolds and some activities versus for advanced classes, how we can chunk differently and help students work on their learning in different kinds of episodes. I'm looking at the chat, an article in the Chronicle. Motivation. Motivation is absolutely a key. Certainly there are different ways to motivate students. So motivation is a key in education in general. The technology can motivate some students because it's familiar to them and some of them like it, but I agree with you that motivating students in general is different from technology, even though technology can be used to motivate students and to keep them engaged, depending on how we use it. So, if we're having them watch lectures without a lot of interaction, that might not be as motivating as other forms of using the technology to help them to be productive. And, as they move out into professional roles, what we're hearing, and I'd love to know if you hear this as well, in professional programs, employers are asking for students who can lead, who can problem solve. We've been hearing this for a long time. My company hires people not because of what they know, but because of what they can do and how quickly they can learn. So they're looking for evidence that someone can start something that's new to them and learn quickly and begin to form a team and build on each other. Those are explicit requirements of most of the jobs. And so if we're not building collaboration and production and helping students to know how they learn into our education, then I think we're not fully preparing them for where they need to go after they leave us. So all of this engagement, the peer feedback, the student self-assessment, everything that we're talking about is helping students to attend to how they learn and helping them to become expert learners, which I think is one of our primary objectives in education in general. Thank you for that link. I'm going to take a look at that. Oh, Clark and Cosma. Love them. So to specific ways that students encounter a learning experience. And so Sharon Oviatt is the person who has changed some of my thinking about the way that technology can contribute to learning. So Sharon is an independent researcher. She's been working with what she calls education interfaces for a couple of decades. And so she looks at how students actually use their technology with their voice, with keyboards, with touch, with ink, whatever the interactions are that are available with their devices, and associating that with what they need to do, with their task within their learning process. So she's got this set of experiences that students go through when they're learning something new. So this could be thought of as a progression across a course, or at a lower level, at a progression through a session, which might be a week or a module, however we might think of that in terms of time, and then building in cycles throughout a course. So at the initial stage, typically a student is working individually. They're encountering something new. So it might be a video, it might be an experience that we provide for them, it might be a reading. So they're getting some new input. They're experiencing something that's a starting point. When they're using technology, they need to be processing what they're experiencing. And so they need to be able to move back and forth among different sources. And so the interface, the way that they're using the technology, is really about consumption more than anything. But very soon, they reach a point where they need to think about what they're doing. So they need to work with it. They need to be active. And Sharon's got a couple of recent books, and one of her books talks about active reading. So that she's got statistics about how much more learning, how much more time, how many more ideas, how many more correct solutions, just on and on, that students generate when they're doing active learning, when they've got active annotation tools, or they're able to take notes, or they're able to diagram to process what's in their heads in a way that's external to them. And so this is where she believes that ink in some way, whether it's on a piece of paper or digital, is what students really need. Because what's in our heads is not necessarily strings of characters. And so by typing, we can get a little bit of the cognitive processing out and help our learning process. But by having space, more dimensions, more colors, shapes, locations, all of that available to us, we can think much more clearly, and we can think much more holistically, and we can think more like an expert. So she did a lot of work comparing novices and experts, and saw that diagramming process was much more used by experts. So it's something that students ought to have experience and ought to have the tools that they can support. Then as they move from this kind of individual encountering content, encountering new experiences, starting to process it, then they make their learning more explicit and more social. So this moves from an individual to a collaborative process as they begin to build with each other, on their individual learning. And so this is where they can start to choose some of those constructive tools, some of those technologies that they might use to show what they're learning, and then to collaborate and do some of that peer review that we're talking about. So this is at the kind of really granular individual student, individual learning experience level, but it's surrounded by all the technology that we've been talking about and the experiences that will help to engage them. So I'll send you the link to a paper that we have that sort of distills some of her research, and you can also get access to her books. I recommend her. So a big part of what we've been talking about is bringing people together to collaborate. And so there's one other resource that I can point to around learning communities and how technology supports learning communities. I think you've got great examples with what Michelle's working on with learning communities for faculty, and the same is true with learning communities for students. So we have a series of papers that we commissioned from experts around the world on 10 different topics in education, and one of them was learning communities. And the scholar was Chris Sessoms at Johns Hopkins, who spent a lot of time studying, writing, building, and facilitating learning communities. So I wanted to offer that to you so you can get a sense of what the research says about facilitating learning communities. So you may have learning communities within a class, and you may have learning communities that transcend a specific class for a group of students in a program or a group of students with a specific goal. Those learning communities, you may have learned over time, don't run themselves. You know, they need active facilitation, and they need to facilitate both reflection on new ideas, but also kind of discussion and building on some of those ideas and action. So sometimes you might be part of a learning community or see a learning community that just seems like people posting ideas, not really acting on them, not really engaged in dialogue. That's where the facilitation comes in, or the culture of the group, you know, what the expectations are, what the purpose is, so that it's meaningful for everyone. So again, I'll share that link so you can take a look at that. And to wrap up in the next couple of minutes, looking forward, what a lot of people are beginning to move into and show interest in is how we can better learn what's working in teaching and learning. So, in the past, we've depended on our own expertise, our experience, our intuition, our research, and research isn't as fast as maybe we might like it to be, or as comprehensive as we might like it to be. So there have been real limits to what we've been able to learn and share through research. Now we've got access to tools that can help us more dynamically see what's happening with student learning. So you're probably familiar with the clickers and student response systems and polling systems that can give you kind of a snapshot of how students are doing on the fly. And some of the analytics that might be built into either digital curriculum or learning management systems that can give you a sense of how students are doing through the learning experience. Those are great examples of ways that we can use, I would say, micro analytics at the individual level or the class level. And there are more tools for that kind of analytics all the time. Free tools, easy tools for people to use. I'm happy to share examples of those. There's interest in moving beyond that, too, in bringing some of what we've learned from using those analytics beyond that specific class experience. So what you do in your class and what you learn about what works is useful to you and other colleagues that you work with. But it's probably useful to other people as well. So how do we share what we know and what we learn more broadly? And how do we learn across those experiences, across courses and across programs and across institutions? And that's where kind of a bigger picture, more mega analytics is starting to come into play. And we've got new tools. There are new tools that are available, more accessible, faster, easier, less expensive for doing some of those analytics. And I just wanted to give a quick snapshot of what that looks like. I'm going to move to another slide here. So one of the studies that I mentioned to you was the study of the factors that influence student learning from LMS logs and other kinds of data sources. That was a few years ago when it was tough to get a hold of a lot of data about student learning, and it was tough to connect the data together without sophisticated analytics tools. It was a slow process. Now, we've got access to a much wider range of data on student learning. So we've got data coming in from students' social networks. We've got data from what students do in games. We've got data from what students do on their devices. We've got data from what instructors say to students, what their interactions are, data from the students themselves. There's a much richer set of data sources that are available. And so I took that same data, the same data set that I described to you, and plugged it into a machine learning service. So this is a service that looks at data over time and not only explains what has happened in the past at a much finer grain of detail than most statistics can do, but it starts to make predictions. And so that's what some of the personalized learning and adaptive programs are starting to do. They're starting to predict what might be useful next steps. But the machine learning does that on a wider scale. So when I put the data from that previous study into the machine learning tool, it predicted with 80% accuracy which students were likely to succeed in a class. And so it's useful to have that information earlier so that we can change those outcomes. So that's one advantage to using some of the new analytics tools that we have. Earlier information about what's likely to happen. Another advantage to these tools is getting a recommendation. So in addition to knowing what was likely to happen based on student patterns, we added in the profiles of some interventions, some programs that could be used for students who are at risk, what those characteristics are, and then the machine learning tools were able to match at-risk students to likely programs that could change their trajectory. So that's better information. That's decision support. That's helping me to know what to do with the information. And that's been a blocker so far. We've had access to a lot of information, but not necessarily known what the best action would be. So the technology is starting to be more available to help us with that. We've even used it for universities that want to know more about student retention. And they've been able to statistically significantly increase retention rates because the machine learning was showing them what was likely to happen and what was likely to help. And it can help with like with cost benefit analysis and other kinds of elements as well of making the decision. And as we move forward, there will be more sources of information that can help us make decisions about what matters for teaching and learning. So you may be using simulations or augmented reality, virtual classrooms and virtual spaces. So what happens there can increasingly be added into the data that we have around what helps individual students learn. You may have a wearable that you use. I have one that has galvanic skin response, and I would love it if it told me when I was in a state of flow so that I could be metacognitive and notice what was happening and try to maximize that. Or when it could tell me I was in a state of distress so that I could notice that and try to minimize it. And as a student, that could be useful to help them to learn the conditions that are conducive to them working in an optimal state. Best time of day to grade papers would be really useful. So I think we could all use that. But right now, it's not at that point, right? It could be. The technology is there, but we're not really using it that way. So there's another opportunity. Internet of Things, so all these microsensors that are being used in buildings and vehicles and packages and all kinds of things, we could use those in learning spaces to tell us about noise levels and oxygen levels or light levels or usage, and associate those with learning as well to help us to better design our spaces. So there are lots of possibilities for technology to help us to better understand when teaching and learning are working. My Fitbit helps me to get more steps too, which I think makes me better, I hope. But I think there's more possible. So I'm very optimistic about what technology can do for us, has already done for us, certainly. And I think there are lots of possibilities moving forward. I do believe strongly that it depends on collaboration and community. We need to keep groups working together and learning together. There's a lot of criticism, and I'm sure you've heard that the more technology we add, the less there's a human side. I think it's the opposite. The more technology we have available to use in education, the more important great teachers are. And the technology can help to maximize the time and the interactions they have with students, to know when students need help and what kind of help, what kind of facilitation, what kind of guidance would be useful. So I think this wraps it up. I'll share with you the article and the blog that I did about this analytics, as well as the other sources of information that I described. So anyone who's interested in any of those can get more information. So, oh goodness, that's not much time. We only have a moment, it looks like. And I know people have other things that they need to do.
I had a comment to make, Cathy, just that it's been a common theme over the years that I've worked in e-learning for some faculty to fear technology in education or putting their courses online. And the common myth I would often get in training sessions is, well, technology will replace the teacher. And that's absolutely impossible. Students want teachers. Even in online learning, student satisfaction goes up with the more interaction or more interactive feedback they get from the professor. People pay tuition to have access to that content expert, and when they don't get them, they complain, and you see end of course surveys go down and have lower success rates because of that. People want teachers. They want them. Otherwise, they can go read the book on their own, or they can go to Wikipedia. They pay tuition to have that content expert, and they want them. And so I always like to point out that I see technology. It'll never replace a teacher. It's just a great advocate for teaching.
Yep, I agree with that completely. Students want an experience and they want access to a guide, a mentor, a coach. They want someone who will help them either have an experience that's different than they can have through just accessing content, which they have. But the learning is about much more than content now. So that's the shift. So if there are faculty for whom teaching is only about content, maybe their fears are justified. But if it's about an experience and skill, capacity, competency, what we can do with the content, what we can make of it, how we can apply it, right? Kind of moving up to those higher levels.
Wisdom.
Faculty are central.
Yep. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Cathy?
I do have a question. It's Cheryl Levitt. Cathy, I'm doing a little study now on a senior practicum course that we have. It's a capstone course that's a pretty intense learning experience for the students. And student feedback, we're looking at perceived areas of stress in the course because that's a lot of the feedback we're having. And one of the comments that we're getting repeatedly from students is that they value choices in terms of how assignments are meant to be delivered. Now, the question that I have is that, I realize that choices are a valid option for us as faculty, but should we look at that? I'm not sure whether some of those responses are coming from students who are afraid of technology and they want to have a choice of a traditional paper and or PowerPoint and are afraid to take that leap to use an ed tech tool, or is it really, or should the students be pushed more to go into the tech tools and say, no, we're not having a paper as an option for this or a PowerPoint. We're going to use whatever, whether it's, Poplet or VoiceThread or other things that we've been using through the program. What's your opinion on that?
Okay, I agree that choice matters. I think that providing a rationale for the choices, whether you're about the ways that you're restricting the choices, right? So it's not open-ended choice. You're deliberately thinking about the kinds of choices that you want to make available, and you're doing that for a reason, whether it's related to having the students experience something new, or whether it's related to having them use a technology or go through a production process that's relevant to them as they move out of that capstone and into whatever the next stage is. I think that's something that ought to be wrapped into what they know, right? What they hear about the class. So, if they're moving into a doctoral program where writing a dissertation will be a piece of it, then, it's justified that they'll write a paper. But if they're moving into some other experience where working collaboratively or thinking about new media, thinking about digital media matters, then that's great justification. So, I would try to tie it to what the goals of the program are or what the goals of the students are first. And then in terms of stress, I've seen a couple of institutions that have looked at, just in general, at where students have experienced stress within a university program. And a lot of it is they think they're the only one experiencing it. And so they think it's a kind of a personal weakness that they have. And then they start to doubt themselves. So what they found is that if they help students to see that it's common, it's expected, it's part of this trajectory, it's part of the process, they'll get through it. There are ways to get through it. The program is designed to help them get through it. It's natural. They do much better. So there may be a couple of ways that you can address it.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments or thoughts? Well, Cathy, I want to thank you very much for your time today. Really appreciate you. I know how busy you are coming in here and presenting on all this with so much information. I'm going to have to go back through this and pick it apart. You covered a lot. We're going to be recording this, so we'll put that online, and I'll send everyone the link once it's done. It might be a couple weeks. We're at a conference next week. But is there any final comments or from anybody? Thank you very much, Cathy.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone. Thanks for coming.